And he said to me, John, what you've just told me, he's like, this is material for a record. He's like, this, when you talked about walking up the street with your dog in the pushchair, he's like, that this is track 1. And he's like, the feelings when your life flashed before your eyes coming back, he's like, this could be track 2. And he was like, just, if you're not feeling inspired musically. Great. We've had 2 festivals.
Yeah.
And 5 shows.
Yeah.
With Le Soir.
We flew to Barcelona a couple of days 2 days before the festival, which was LiveProg, my friend, to do some rehearsing, and we've had some difficulties with a lost guitar. Ingo's guitar. Ingo came over from the Netherlands, and his guitar stayed in Amsterdam, I think. Yeah. So it was a bit of a stressful thing, because then we had to rehearse. He had to rehearse with John's spare guitar, but everything went well. And then the festival was really cool.
Yeah. We got to wear sunglasses on stage.
Yes.
Because the sun was coming down.
Yeah.
And it was burning our eyes, right?
In any other moment, it's very pretentious to have sunglasses on stage, but this was actually necessary because it was just so bright.
Okay.
So we were very pleased.
We were very pleased that we had this opportunity to authentically wear sunglasses.
Yeah, without it being pretentious.
Yeah.
That's cool. Of that tour, you're doing 3 shows in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
We are quite fortunate. How did that happen, 3 shows?
Maybe we need to ask our manager this one.
Yes.
I don't know. I guess it's home territory. Yeah, for our manager booking, for Le Soir as well.
Yeah, probably that.
So, and at the moment, 50% of the band is Dutch, so I guess it makes sense. Yeah. I don't know the specific reasons, but it's been really cool. We've had some really nice, really warm receptions, so it's been great.
Yeah.
You did the Prog Power Festival yesterday?
Yes.
How was it to be there? Did you see any other interesting bands along the way?
Well, we didn't have time to check out any bands because because today they're having a lot on, and we had one band before us, so there was only one band we got to check out. So, and we were getting ready for the show, so that was, that's not the best time to go and see a band. But actually, I can say the vibe there of that festival is so nice. The people, it feels like one big family.
Yeah.
Very friendly, very enthusiastic. I've had tons of nice conversations.
Yeah,
they're very helpful.
People had travelled around, hadn't they? And I think it's one of these festivals that you come back each year. So
it feels like something you would like to. Cool. I would like to experience it as a visitor, because it's so. Yeah, it's just good vibes.
Yeah, definitely.
Small scale as well, but still very good quality.
Yeah. Then you have Le Soir joining you on this one, and how do you got in touch with them and got this joint tour doing together?
I guess it's Ingo, right?
I guess Ingo and Rob the manager, isn't it?
Yes.
It's there's a double connection here. I think it's a decent match to have the 2 bands, so it makes sense to have us both playing on one night. I guess it's like 2 for the price of 1.
Ingo, so not Ingo, you from Le Soir that you interviewed.
Yeah, the band has 2 Ingos. That was a bit confusing, but
so our Ingo. He was playing. He played bass. I think a couple of.
Played bass for a few shows, and then when Greg couldn't come, he stepped up to guitar. Yeah. And more vocals.
Yeah. So Ingo is like a multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
We call this
multi-instrumentalist.
Yes. Yeah. That's
okay.
It, yeah.
So he already was playing with you before Greg couldn't make it.
Yes. He's been doing bass and vocals and some extra guitar bits as well.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's a shame that Greg couldn't be here, but at the same time, it's nice that you have someone to fill in for him. So that's
exactly.
Yeah. tour is, of course, to promote the new album, Coming Up to Consciousness. It's been released, I think it's about a month now.
A month ago, yeah.
Month out. And how are the reactions to the album?
It seems really good. Yeah, it seems very positive. And, you know, we tried to do something a bit different with this record, perhaps with Upnir and Above Cirrus. These were two quite similar sounding records. And with this, I wanted to create something a bit different. So avoiding some, let's say, pure reason cliches, this quiet, heavy. Sure, you get that on this record, but also there's some songs that stay quiet, and that's fine. They can just stay quiet.
Yeah.
Not everything needs to sound like the apocalypse and the world's about to end. So there's some that just stay down, and that's totally cool. And who knows, with the next record, maybe that will be all bangers and more explosive. But
So it was a bit by design. You wanted to do something different.
Yeah, I wanted to do something different, not repeat ourselves, and not do perhaps what the listener expected. And just forge forward with something else and go with my gut feeling that let's try and create something a bit different. I was listening to a lot of Talk, listening to Elliott Smith, The Smile. I was listening to this more laid back stuff, and I guess this had an influence, on what came out. So perhaps this record has like a softer edge than the other ones, but as I said, I don't want every record to sound the same because then it's going to be boring. So
that's true. Although I don't find Apnea and Above Cirrus boring in any way.
But maybe another one in that vein could have been a bit boring. So. Yeah.
I gotta say that the change you brought into the music, that is something I really appreciate that as well. I think it's really good. Also will help, I think, more listeners to discover the band.
Yeah.
Which I think is good, and that got me a bit curious because what makes you start working on a new album? If you start on a new album, do you have a certain way how you do it?
Albums usually kickstart with something, some events, some inspiration, and then this helps form perhaps the general concept for the record. But with this one, I came into it really. I went through a patch where I had sort of zero inspiration. I had we'd had our dog put to sleep, and then this had a big effect on me. On my emotions were all tangled, and I was up and down. And then I had this possible exposure with this asbestos, and I really I was going into the studio, but nothing was coming out. And I thought, right, I'll spend this time to try and get technically a bit better. So I started playing piano and doing some piano theory and doing some guitar, trying to, practice scales and things like this to think, if I got technically better, then this might help composition. And it didn't really help anything. And then I met with my friend Craig Walker, who sang on a few archive records, and he was in the band The Power of Dreams, and we went for coffee in Berlin. And I told him about this crappy few months that I'd had. And I told him about the sort of series of events. And he said to me, John, what you've just told me, he's like, this is material for a record. He's like, this, when you talked about walking up the street with your dog in the pushchair, he's like, this is track one. And he's like, the feelings when your life flashed before your eyes coming back, he's like, this could be track two. And he was like, just, if you're not feeling inspired musically, just get this down lyrically. And then, so sort of meeting with him sort of was the catalyst to getting started on the record. And then as soon as I started getting the lyrics down, then that's when the music started feeding the lyrics. And then I always have this push and pull. I get excited about the music, and then that kicks some lyrical ideas back to me and vice versa. So that was how this sort of began.
So it's quite different from what you did with the other albums, I get it?
Yeah, I mean, there were different events that started those, that kick-started the concepts for those. But something that was a little different on this record is a lot of the songs were sort of worked out on guitar and played. I did a verse and a chorus and perhaps a middle eight, just playing it on my guitar. Whereas with the previous albums, things were recorded a bit more in sections. So I'd sort of record in a verse.
Yeah.
And then I'd go, that's sounding good. Then it's like, okay, time for a chorus. now work on a chorus, and you know, you sort of attach that to the next bit, and then you go, let's make this a weird section, and you know, this can be just, I don't know, some instrumental thing. And so the other albums were a bit more in sections, whereas this was a bit more organic, perhaps more in a way going back to the Dark Third, how I used to write then, where I would sit down and form most of a song, just me on a guitar.
This is also a very personal album then for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, it's often a topic, you know, the things that I've experienced, they go straight into the songs. You know, I also write about snapshots of life, sometimes other people's experiences, but predominantly it's, you know, it's my experiences that feed the lyrics and then, you know, generate the emotion that goes into it.
Yeah. Do you have specific instruments that you use for this album?
Yeah, I would say, you know, guitar and piano, that's the main things.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, I programmed some drums quite badly, and then it's quite nice to send those over to Ravi, and he can improve them, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I did a few tracks with Greg as well on this record, so I think we wrote 2 or 3 together, and then the rest is done in Berlin in my little studio.
When you're writing with Greg, I think the dynamics will be a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, for a track like Betrayal, for example, that was just Greg and I in his living room. I was on guitar, he was on the piano, and we just started. It's best when we write to sort of start from scratch with no sort of big preconceived ideas. Let's just try something, and then, you know, a little idea comes, and then we sort of jam on that and form that into something.
Yeah.
But because I've worked with Greg for so long, yeah, we had a big break, but we're really quick on references to each other. So if we sort of say, oh, not sure about that, can you make it sound a bit more like, well, I don't know, like Pink Floyd's metal era, can you try some guitar like that? Or no, try some piano that's a bit more Beatles style or something like this. Yeah. We're very quick to sort of get what we want.
I love these stories, I really do. This is the first Pure Reason Revolution album without Chloe.
Yes.
And at what point did you know that she would not be involved in the album?
So yeah, I guess if we rewind to Above Cirrus, you know, that record was completed with Chloe, with vocals. But then when it came to touring, you know, she just wasn't available. She's got a super busy day job and she's doing shows with James. So, you know, her calendar was just packed. So then we were introduced to Annicke through a mutual friend. And I think then you and I got on a Zoom, didn't we, or something, and had a chat.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was still in the end of the Corona times, I believe. It was still a lockdown at the time.
Yeah.
So we already, and I also spoke to Rob, the manager. We had several phone calls about it, and I think at first I was supposed to do that one tour that Chloe couldn't do.
Yeah, right. I guess that was it. Yeah.
So I just started to dive into the music. It was completely new for me. I never heard of it before, and I just really loved it. We went on tour and it went very well. Yeah. And I kind of stuck around.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. So, and then it was, I think then it was sort of time. Well, let's start a new record. Mm-hmm. And then I think, you know, as a few new demos started, that's probably when I had a chat with Chloe. And, you know, the situation was the same. She's doing lots with James, possibly even more with James, and the calendar was chock-a-block again. Yeah. And it just made sense, you know, Annicke's available to tour. She's also extremely busy with various projects.
Yeah, some other bands, but but there is gaps where I'm home and where I'm available, and our manager knows the schedule. So, I guess also Pure Reason is a little bit maneuvering around my schedule, but but there is a lot of time that I can do it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's so different and fresh from what I've been doing for several years with Heilung, for example, in my own band, Shireen. Pure Reason is really a new. I feel like there's a different side of my voice I can discover. There's a new way of music that I can be part of, and that's really refreshing.
Yeah.
And I think then, just to go back slightly, with this record, it was, Annicke's around, she's available for both. And for Chloe, I think to sing on the record again, but not do live, that's more confusing than what we have now. Annicke sang on the record, she can do it live, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And for me, it also felt like when we were going in the studio for 4 days, I think, to sing all the harmonies, all my parts, and also a couple of the lead things, just to sing it and just to layer it up. And we spent 4 long days. Yeah, in Berlin. And we got super giggly at the end. But it was a really good for me to be really a part of it, and I really appreciate that. That I could also, add some of my own ideas to the harmonies, and in the end, John is the one who just blends it beautifully, and it just becomes a. John, he mixed it. You mixed it, right? Master.
I mixed it, but I mean, Bruce. Here, I guess we bring in Bruce.
Yeah,
Bruce,
you pre-mixed it, but
he gets bounces of what's going to be used. He doesn't have to arrange the harmonies to the right levels.
Yeah. So he's gonna do the actual mix work, but he made it sounds so organically. It was a very nice process to be part of.
Yeah. Nice to hear. So I didn't know you were already going on tour with the band before this album. So
yeah. I think we started in 21, 22?
I think it was 22, 22.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, definitely nice to hear. You mentioned something about the drums, about Ravi, and when I was listening to the album, he really stood out for me. Especially, there was a part every time I was listening to Useless Animal, when in the second half, when the drums come up, it's like, wow. Where did you find him?
Ravi, I think I know Ravi from years ago because he played in this band My Vitriol, which I knew from like my university time. But then I had no contact with him for, I guess, like 20 years. And then he emailed me or messaged me because he got my contact from Chloe at the time. And Ravi was just saying, look, John, if ever you need drums for anything, just let me know. And he was so enthusiastic, messaging me, when can I do it? That the time came when Michael couldn't do a few gigs. And so then I thought, right, Ravi, he's been messaging me. So then I sort of messaged Ravi, and he said, yes, I'll stand in to do the gigs. He was available, and then because he'd done 2 or 3, it just made sense to keep on going with Ravi, and then so he did the drums on the record.
Yeah.
And did a great job, because like I said, I programmed some stuff, and he essentially, when I'm doing it, it sounds a bit mechanical probably, but then he gives it the flair of a real drummer, the feel of a real drummer, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's good to have him on the album as well.
Yes.
Another name I cannot leave out of the interview, you probably know who I mean, Guy Pratt.
Yes.
I think if you mention his name, everybody knows. Everybody will say Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And I know that. There's always been talk about the influences of certain bands in Pure Reason Revolution. Pink Floyd being one of them.
Yes.
I gotta be honest, with this album, I do agree on a couple of songs, but that's because of the slide guitar. That really gave me a Pink Floyd feel to it. But I enjoyed that touch. But then having him to play on the bass, was that just a question of asking him, do you want to play, or?
It was. Let me think. So going back to my friend Craig Walker, I was in Berlin looking on social media one evening, and Craig put up a post saying, just seen Saucer Full of Secrets in Berlin. And I thought, damn, how did I miss this gig happening? So I immediately messaged Craig, and he said, yeah, the gig was amazing. And I saw Guy Pratt and I saw the guys afterwards, and I was like, no way, this is unbelievable. Not only did I miss it, but you know, I could have gone with Craig, and maybe I could have met the rest of the band. Anyway, so then I said to Craig, I'm going to see when the rest of the tour dates are. And sure enough, the day after they were playing in Leipzig. So I spoke to Craig, said, could you get us guest list, because he knows Guy. So I said, could you get us guest list for Leipzig the next day? He said yes. So we got in the car, drove down to Leipzig, saw them the next day, met Guy, met Nick, met the rest of the band, which was pretty amazing. And then this was like the first meeting. Gave them a bit of music. I think I gave Guy a couple of CDs. Fast forward a couple of months, I was at Greg's in Portland. Saucer Full of Secrets, by coincidence, are playing in Seattle. Speak to Craig again, go and see them in Seattle. Then this evening, spoke a bit more with Guy, and then this is when I brought up, wouldn't it be fun to try a collaboration? And he said, yeah, it would be fun to try a collaboration. So then we exchanged perhaps numbers, emails, and then it went from there.
Yeah.
So it went from 1 or 2 songs to 6 or 7 songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one song he didn't play on.
That's right.
I was curious why. That was John Sykes from Pineapple Thief.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious how.
I mean, unfortunately, he got rather busy with a little-known artist, Dave Gilmour. So, so I believe he's out doing shows with him right now. But yeah, he's a busy man, but he got super busy with the pre-production, doing that record.
Yeah.
So he was excused from doing.
That's a good excuse.
Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, and then you had John Sykes step
Exactly.
in.
So,
okay.
yeah.
Well, he did a great job too, so that's great. You already mentioned Bruce Sword, that he got involved in the album. He did a wonderful, I would say stunning surround mix. I think it's the first, right?
Absolutely, yeah, it's the first.
Yeah, why did you? Is it your idea to include it, or was it Bruce's idea?
I think it was Bruce's idea, because he has the setup to do it. So he just said, "I'll do the mix," but he said, "I'd love to do the Atmos and the 5.1 mixes." So we said, please. This, in fact, right at the outset of Pure Reason Revolution, we always wanted to mix in 5.1. That's something that we always wanted to try. It's taken till now for it actually to happen. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Bruce is great at doing that. He really knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I was really blown away by that one. The detail in the various places, it's really stunning. So I gotta say, this is definitely probably the best surround mix I've heard so far. Great. And I am a big fan of Stephen Wilson's mixes. I have a couple of him as well. So. Yeah.
This now confirms my paranoia. I need some thought, and just gather some thoughts and feelings. Got my brain distorts. The picture's been rearranged.
One thing I noticed when with the past 3 albums, the covers, the animals,
yes,
they play an important part. I mean, with the current album, I can understand it a little bit more. But what's the significance of the animals on the covers?
What's the significance? I think that with Jill's work, they've all sort of jumped into my life at these poignant moments that connect with the material. So with Near, it was my daughter being born, and then this one evening the nurse in the hospital said, Jessie, she's going to make it through. She's strong like a little lion. And then that very evening I was looking at social media, and this is when I saw Jill's painting. So straight away I just picked up the phone to Jill and said, please, can I use this for the album cover? Because it connects straight away with the music. And then it was the same with the dog. It was with As We Disappear, it just was. It's not Dennis, our dog, on there, but just the image of the dog was just perfect for the material, and it came just at the right time. And I love working with Jill because there's so much detail in her artistry that it just shows real craftsmanship. And I don't want to just work with someone that the labels suggest, some designer that probably doesn't really care about the band. You know, if I can work with a friend who I think is who I really admire, that does such detail in her work, and I think that mirrors the music. You know, there's a lot of detail in Furies and Revolution's music, and I want that to be mirrored with the artwork too. So yeah, it not only connects in an artistic way, but also just all the aesthetics really connect together for me.